I was reborn as a mysterious turtle in a deep lake. Just to survive this swamp full of danger, I did nothing but perfect my ability to hide inside my house every day. If I wasn't drowning in mud and pretending to be a rock, I would just soak under the water to hold my breath. Until 50 years later, I successfully became a living fossil covered in moss, but at the same time I also became extremely numb. I gradually forgot about being a human in my previous life, but one day, an old woodcutter by the lake slipped and fell. He fell right behind my house. Because of the little mercy left in my mind, I didn't shake him so that he would fall. Instead, I slowly floated to the bank. I thought that everything would end there, but I didn't expect that after 3 days, that man returned to the lake. And then he did something that really surprised me. First, he offered some sour fruits. Then he repeatedly bowed in front of me, thanking me for blessing him. Otherwise there would be no one to take care of his blind mother when she passed away. I have one more request. I hope the holy turtle will allow me to gather firewood by the lake. When I heard that, I was just tormented. In my mind, he had gone too far, so I just sank to the bottom to sleep. But when the woodcutter saw that I hadn't poured water on him, he thawed. I agreed. From then on, he always hung out by the lake. And I, every day, lay on a rock, listening to him chop wood and hum. He gradually cleared the weeds around. Every now and then we would look at each other and he would just sit down as if we had known each other for a long time and start talking about how strong the firewood sales were, that they were able to buy salt for the house, and other things, like he was going to make me a plaque for a long life. Eventually, I got tired of his talk, so every day, I just stuck my head inside the house and pretended to be dead. 6 months passed like that. The area that the woodcutter had cleared was getting bigger and bigger, until it was the envy of the bonfires in the other village. That day, as usual, I was absorbing the energy of the sun and moon and was about to go to bed. Suddenly, I felt 3 chaotic footsteps on the bank. I was stunned. I thought some people had brought more wood to disturb my sound sleep, so I slowly pulled my head out, pouring water on them with a bag to scare them. But as soon as I raised my head, I saw the wood with a face, as if protecting a bundle of firewood. He was trying to block the way of a man with a scar on his face. This is the hard wood that I will sell at the market in the city. You can't take it. But upon hearing that, the strong man with the arrogant look laughed even harder. Do you unbelowing? This, do you really want to die? What? Old man? After saying that, his 2 companions were still watching excitedly from the side and stretched out their hands to grab the firewood. They thought the woodcutter would defend the bundle of firewood well. Head, not letting go no matter how hard they pulled. I saw that and I was a little surprised. Just for a broken axe, you really had to gamble with your life. I was just thinking about whether I should roll over to make a move, when I saw that the scarred man's vision had darkened. He suddenly raised the iron pipe he was holding, and was about to hit the woodcutter's head. But at the same moment it was about to hit, I couldn't bear it anymore. I swung my legs behind him around. Stone flew like a bullet. It hit the scarred man's wrist exactly. Hooray! The scarred man screamed in pain. He let go of the pipe and it flew towards the lake. The 2 with him were stunned with fear. They were just used to stealing things. When did they see this scene? Who is that? Who is pretending to be who? Holding his wrist with a dagger, looking for a way to vent his anger. But the surroundings were unusually quiet, and when you looked at the lake without thinking, our eyes met, my eyes the size of polished stones, and my thick shell as if from ancient times. A strong gushing of water came out. It turned out that the Throso had arrived. He was even older than 10 years ago. His once straight back, now bent like a bow. 10 years ago, I didn't expect to see you again. I knew you were a turtle. I slowly opened my eyes. I watched this old man who was no longer chopping wood. I didn't feel anything. Because I can't chop wood anymore. I've just become a burden to the family. My mother passed away 2 years ago. Her departure was a peaceful one. The money we earned from the firewood that you blessed was a great help. I just listened quietly, and for the first time I didn't feel like I was bothering him. This old man who had worked hard all his life just to eat and survive. In the end, he still couldn't change the line on his palm. By afternoon, the Troso man had left. His steps heavy. I could smell the smell of decomposition from him. Maybe he thought his life had been worth it. But I felt apprehensive. Human life is very short. I don't want to be like him who will quietly rot in the mud. Because of that, a mysterious turtle in the lake because of the fear of dying began to suck spiritual energy with all his might in an attempt to make his indestructible hollow until a few years later I experienced a strange event. I don't know when it started, but there were always water creatures that invaded my territory, even though I was able to drive them away with my strong defense. The next day, there was definitely a new group coming. I was so nervous, I couldn't sleep anymore. In the end, I really couldn't think of a way. I thought about taking a peek at what the market looked like, people, so I could find another place to sleep, but I didn't. I didn't expect to witness the suffering in the world again, people. 2 days later, the current washed me up in a talahib plantation next to a fishing village. My first impression of the village was that it was dilapidated. Several old boats were overturned on the shore. The nets were empty, not even a single seabird. The damapo was lazing around. My plan was to just drift away again and find another place. But I didn't think that before I left, I would meet a girl. The child was about 6 or 7 years old and his name was Aju. He was wearing a big dress that was clearly not his. He was sitting in the middle of the talahib and catching snails. Usually, it's safe here, there are no big fish, but that day, there happened to be a giant water snake looking for food. And when Aju could barely stand up in fear, I slowly emerged from the water. The water snake bit me on my eyelid, immediately breaking 2 of its poisonous fangs. In extreme pain, the Ito ran away immediately. Asias sat down in the mud, while he was dumbfounded watching the water snake and I fight. Actually, I didn't even move, but to my surprise, he wasn't scared and even stayed in fear like he was about to throw. Instead, he dared to come closer to me. He knocked on my eyelid. "Big Rock, are you alive?" I couldn't believe it, so I just gave him a hard time to show my annoyance. When Aju saw that I responded, he was very surprised and his laughter grew louder. It took a while. "Really, do you understand what I'm saying?" I gave him a hard time again, because then Azio was happy, a big turtle that understood human speech. "Strange, are you biting?" Dad said, "They say that water monsters eat children." He thought I would act again, but what I did was, I just stuck half of my head inside. I pretended not to care about him. But instead of being annoyed, he was even happier. He went straight up and sat behind me. The whiter one, flatter, was one of our broken beds and I, who was planning to travel far, just stayed in this hut. Aju often came to talk to me. When he was tired, he would lie down directly behind me to sleep. He made me look like a small moving island. His eyes would glow red as he lay on my back, a big turtle. The town chief took our dry food from the house. He said it was to pay taxes when they had rice. Asia's father didn't share it, he made porridge for some. A family that also ran out of food. These fishermen live on water. Only by working together will they not sink. At first, everyone said Aju was just lucky. But when their rice ran out and Aju found 2 golden fish in the hut again, Asia's parents began to suspect. Until the family had almost nothing to eat again. Suddenly, Aju was sent home with a dead river animal, a river dolphin. Because of this, the villagers were no longer confused. According to them, how could a wild river animal like this just pick up a young girl? On the shore, dozens of fishermen were confusing the dolphins and saying different things to each other. Aju stood in the middle, hunched over while playing with his talili. Even though these foods saved lives, this incident was so scary. Maybe he was also possessed by the water fairy and drowned in a river. Aju, where did this river pig really come from? But you remained with me, Azio, and did not say anything. Who gave it? Could it be from the Dragon King of the Waters? Asia's father was panicked. Aju, you had to tell the truth. Otherwise, I will send you to the temple to expel the evil spirit. Azio cried and finally, he confessed everything. Not far from the cliff, I just sighed. I slowly swam towards the shore. I decided to show myself to warn them. But because of that, the people were very scared. I don't know who shouted, "Look, the great Xuan Hu." Everyone looked in the direction that person was looking. They saw Azio running closer while crying and suddenly hugged my neck full of moss. I raised my claw and gently poked his head twice to show that I was his ally. After showing up and making my presence known, I turned around and dived back into the water. When I saw that Aju had not harmed the fish eaters, I was relieved. Later, the tradition of offering offerings to Xuan Wu re-emerged. Some fish eaters would throw copper coins into the water to make a request. In addition to thanking me for providing food, they also asked for a peaceful ocean and abundant catches of fish and shrimp. That would have been fine, but the worst part was that someone even asked me to give them luck in gambling. Is that my job as a turtle? After that, every few days I would leave a few big fish on the shore. However, the good situation did not last long. The wonders in the village quickly attracted the attention of outsiders. One day, Aziu ran breathlessly to the pond. While running, he let out a howl. Big turtle, run away. You, the tyrant of the fishing village, brought people to catch you. They said they will catch you to offer to the governor for his long life feast. Many large boats arrived. Some bad people also carried harpoons. Go away. I nodded and was about to dive when I noticed something strange in the water level around. It turned out that a long time ago, the tyrant of the fish had ordered someone to put a net that did not save anyone in the upper part of the river. He even spread a lot of plants that made the fish dizzy. I saw more than 10 large boats approaching to surround me. The tyrant of the fishing village was standing in front of the boat. It was a sacred creature. If it was caught, there was only a reward of 100 silver pieces because of the big reward, anyone who would be brave. That's why, one after another, large nets fell on me. How difficult is it to bring back a sacred turtle that doesn't want to fight? That was followed by screams of intense fear. The boats were wrecked and the hungry people fell into the water one after another. Meanwhile, I was peacefully lying on the rock that calmed down in the middle of the whirlpool, while watching the whole chaos. Later, the people who were lucky enough to return to the bank almost died of fear. Was finally confirmed. A water god protecting the lake, the Black Dragon. Because of this, even the tyrant fishermen no longer dared to return to collect taxes. At the same time, the villagers also found out what I can do even though I'm just a turtle. I shouldn't be bumped into. Because of that, they respected and feared me even more. I knew I couldn't get too close to Azu, because I might just bring disaster to her life. So I decided to sleep for a long time to gain strength. After 9 years, I emerged from the depths again. Maybe Azu and I are really old. Ize was big, but the smell of his spear still hasn't gone away if you just ignore his rough hands. You can tell he has a beauty. The beautiful modesty that is common among young women in their area. Azu seemed to sense something, so she turned around. She saw the familiar black tallow cab behind me. Like when she was a child, she ran over and patted my back. She was crying and laughing at the same time, blaming me for sleeping for so long. When night came, the wind blew gently from the river. Aju was wearing sandals behind me while sitting on the sand, while watching the moon in the sky. He finally spoke words that stopped me. I'm getting married, Big Turtle. Brother Anio has been kind to me in the village since childhood. He has always protected me. I like him, but I can't marry him. What he doesn't know is that his decision is the one that will plunge him into endless suffering. I heard Aju continue to tell the story. Last month, Don Chen came from town to collect rent. He saw me and said he wanted to make me his second wife. I knew that being a second wife was not worth much. Don Chen was almost the same age as my father. One foot was in the pit. But life in the village was very difficult and Brother Anio's family was also poor. Their old boat was being repaired over and over again. Donkian was different. His lands were vast. There was no need to fear the storms of life. Asia's voice was only weak. But it was like this heavy martel that passed through my heart. Yes, my wedding is tomorrow. Big Turtle, can you take me? I nodded and blew bubbles of water one after another. On the wedding day, there was no grand parade. There was only an old wedding chair. Aju didn't bring anything. He just brought the old turtle house that I bought for him back then. Azio's parents turned away to wipe their tears. They couldn't bear to look at their son, not far away in the middle of the forest. There was a young man kneeling in the mud, beating his chest in resentment. He was my brother. Aju said, maybe he was blaming himself for his incompetence. He couldn't even buy a proper boat. Or maybe he was cursing the injustice of the world. But there was nothing he could do so. All he could do was watch the wedding chair move away, carrying the woman he loved. The curtain of the chair was slightly raised and from the crack, he saw my body floating in the water like a small island. On his face, full of tears, a bitter smile appeared. Perhaps he had betrayed his younger brother Aniyu. Perhaps marrying the old landowner as his second wife was a leap into disaster. But what else could he do? Poverty had tormented him for more than 10 years, in the middle of the ocean. Their boat capsized and their family would never be able to be together again. He just wanted to live in peace. You have no one to blame but this world. Your own fate. I floated with the flow of the water. I followed the Lecton wedding dress to the port outside the city. From afar, I watched Lekton enter the side gate of the mansion. Chen. Kurita is still Kurita, she has no right to go through the main door. Long time, I stayed by the harbor. When the mansion was hung with red lanterns, Chen. Only then did I turn around and dive back into the depths. Back to my own home, the black dragon pool, in my mind. I worried about the girl who used to sleep behind me. Aju, who grew up by the water. Would she be able to get used to the seemingly dead water inside that big mansion? Because of what happened to Aju, I intensified my defense training even more, hoping that in the future I would be tougher enough for no one to break my shell. But I didn't expect it. A year later, a person came running to the lake, almost limping. Even though his shoes were gone and his feet were numb, he still ran as if he was not himself. I don't know why, but I suddenly felt nervous because of my senses. That person was Asia's Aniho, a mortal turtle. Grandpa Turtle, I beg you, please save Aju while watching Anios. Only pause and bowing, I didn't speak. Instead, I sent a voice directly to his mind. Bowing is enough. If you continue like that, your brain might spill into the water and pollute the surroundings. Because there, Anios sat down in the mud in extreme fear. He was stunned for a long time before realizing that the immortal turtle had appeared. But the next moment he started crying even more, and what he said next surprised me a lot. Grandpa Turtle, Azio, Aju is about to die him. Dun Shen, he really didn't want to take Kurita. He followed the evil method of a demon priest. He wanted to take the blood from the heart of a virgin to make a pill to prolong life. Tonight they would do it. When I heard the words prolong life, my previously lying body that was indifferent suddenly stiffened again to prolong life. In the past, those who would go to the forest just for a few bundles of firewood also wanted to prolong life. To spare his old mother's life, killed herself from exhaustion. Now, this rich man, just to prolong his life, will turn a living person into a substance. I sighed as I looked at my reflection, looking like a turtle in the water. Throughout my life, death has been my greatest fear. So my mother was my best defense. But I hate people more than anything else who, because of their own fear of dying, will let others die while they're still alive. And one more thing, Azio still owes me a comb. On board, I pressed my body against the shore. My giant shell was like a black warship. Anayo was stunned and immediately replaced by great joy. He even climbed up my back with his hands and feet, and tightly hugged the protruding bones on my back. That night, the water in the black dragon's lair mysteriously dropped 3 feet. Because I moved, I am not like those powerful dragons who, when traveling on water, had to create storms accompanied by lightning and thunder. Mine is just that I traveled quietly under the river. My feet and hands were not fast, but with each movement, it carried the powerful beast power that I had accumulated over more than 100 years. My speed was like a black lightning bolt, but I did not create a single wave on the surface of the water. This was the ultimate in stealth, approaching without any noise and then releasing the most powerful blow. The mansion was very bright, the chens and large red lanterns were hanging above. Anyone who did not know would think that there was a celebration. What they did not know was that a death ceremony was taking place inside. The mansion was built by the river to boast of its good luck. They even deliberately brought water from the river to create a lotus pond in their yard. Heaven is really helping me, but I didn't go through the main gate because it was too much. The attention grabbing, so I followed the underground water flow like a giant mud until I got right under the lake, Chen. From under the water, I am an altar prepared in the yard. A person wearing a yellow robe is swinging his wooden sword while muttering something. Meanwhile, Aju is tied to a pillar. There is a cloth covering his mouth. His face is as pale as paper and his eyes are lifeless. Donson is sitting in his armchair and his face is red with health. He is still twisting 2 walnuts in his hand. Isla is eagerly waiting to drink the medicine. The time has come. The time, take blood, Priest Kawista shouted loudly. He was holding a shiny and sharp knife. He pointed it at Izia's chest. Behind me, Enyu was irritated and wanted to jump the fight to the death. But I stopped him with my extraordinary strength. Fight to the death, that's the job of the slow-witted, weird turtles. What's important to us is control. And the moment the tip of the knife almost touched Azu's clothes, I moved. I didn't rush but with a deep breath and then pointed. at the spring under the Lotus Lake, and with all my strength I spat out the essence of the water that I had collected for over 100 years. Dan, the people in Chen's mansion felt the sudden shaking of the ground beneath their feet, and after that the Lotus Lake, which was only about half a hectare in size, suddenly boiled as if the water had been boiled. A column of water shot up about 3 feet high. The water from the lake, along with mud, lotus leaves and koi fish, poured down on them all. The Parang Tawista was the first to be hit. A strong gust of water slammed him into the fake stones in the garden. He couldn't even scream. He immediately lost consciousness. The knife in his hand was where it had gone. Earthquake, flood. At that time, the yard became a complete chaos. The servants and gardeners ran in different directions. In great fear, Don Chen fell from his chair. 2 servants supported him as he ran to the back house. In the middle of the chaos, a large black shadow covered in moisture slowly crawled out of the lake. I felt like a moving small mountain with every step I took. The stone tiles on the floor cracked and cracked. No mold, no rust, only the suffocating presence. Meanwhile, Enyu took advantage of the chaos and surged downward. He ran to untie Azu. When Azu saw me, his previously lifeless eyes suddenly filled with tears. He just grunted and couldn't speak. Only a desperate nod was made. And at that moment, where did this monster come from? You know, Don Chen shouted hysterically from the hallway. Several guards next to him dared. Using their arrows and fire, they shot me indiscriminately. But what happened next completely shocked them. They saw the arrows hit my polo cab. Not a single scratch was left, they just bounced off. The fire hitting me was like a popcorn popper. I didn't even bother to put my head in. Ridiculous, if I were just a little bit of firewood. I'd better just find some tofu and bang my head there until I die. After that, I ignored all their attacks. Every step, I slowly approached Donjin. I didn't know I was dying. But every step I took closed off all his escape routes. In front of him was a thick brick wall. Don Chen thought he was safe behind the wall. But when I reached the wall, I didn't stop, I crashed straight into it. In the next moment, that 2-foot thick wall was like paper in front of me. It collapsed in an instant amidst the flying bricks and stones. My giant head appeared right in front of Don Chen. The hot air from my nose was His hat flew. Don Chen fell to the floor, his pants were soaked. Have mercy, they just found out, have mercy. I'm rich, I have so much money, no matter how much, I'll give it to you. I'll have a temple built for you, I'll make you a golden statue. I looked down at the trembling old man from above. My eyes were filled with nightmares. Temple, golden statue, if those things were important to me, I would have reigned in Black Dragon Lake a long time ago. Do I still have to wallow in the mud and accept stones? I didn't kill him because killing has karma attached to it. Besides, that old man only had a few days left to live. Just a deep fear, probably enough for him. But what I did next was worse than death. I made him feel. I opened my mouth, pointed at the door of the vault next to him, and suddenly, I took a deep breath of air. The next moment, a strong gust of water as if from a water cannon gushed out. It directly broke the door. But the vault, Mr. Chen watched all his life savings being carried away by the water. His eyes widened. His legs gave way and he died directly from too much resentment. Of heart, the job was done. I turned around and motioned for Aniu to carry Azu. Climb behind me. We can't stay here any longer. The authorities were coming soon. That night a strange boat appeared on the river. A couple of lovers were on it. They went against the current and disappeared at 5 o'clock in the evening. After I took them to a remote village in the mountains. I didn't stay long, but Azu hugged my neck and cried for a long time. He wanted to give me the sukli again. But I immediately refused. It was just made from the ball of an old turtle. It's worthless, just keep it as a souvenir. I know, from this day on, our world will be different. They will live a simple family life. While I had to return to my black dragon pool to hide like a turtle again. After that incident, the name of true Lord Xuan Wan of the Black Dragon Pool has become famous. I heard that the government sent soldiers to suppress me several times. But in the end, they did not see my shadow because I moved my home to an even deeper underground river at the very bottom of the lake. There even a tiny bit of light cannot enter, quiet, perfect for sleeping. And in that sleep I slept for another 50 years. When I woke up because I felt a familiar death energy, and as soon as I got out of the water, I immediately saw a tomb alone by the lake. In front of the tomb there was an old man. Kneeling, his hair was white. Aju, he was old. His face was full of wrinkles. Brother Iniyu is gone. Aju was burning paper money, his voice hoarse. He said it was the happiest moment of his life. Oh, that night he rode on the back of the turtle immortal to kidnap his future wife. I was just submerged in the water, listening quietly. I'm getting closer. The children are grown. I don't need to worry about them anymore. Before I pass away, I just want to see you again. Azihu tremblingly took the comb from his clothes. He placed it on the stone in front of the grave. You didn't accept it before, I'm returning it to you. In the next life, if I'm given the chance to be human again, I will definitely bring you a bunch of delicious fish from the river. Aju left. He didn't make it to the end of that winter. He passed away too. A new grave was added next to the lake. They were next to Ennio's grave. The comb was left on the stone. Blown by the wind and basking in the sun, it slowly crept up. I bit it and brought it back to the bottom of the lake. I hid it under the big rock where I was sleeping. But my sleep was not peaceful. Not because it was too cold underwater, but because the world had become too chaotic. The comb made in the turtle house that Aju had left behind. In the end, I still couldn't bear the passing of time. It just crumbled to pieces under me. When I woke up, I was stunned as I stared at the crushed pieces. I suddenly felt a strange sadness in my heart. When I counted, it turned out that I had slept for a full 6 years. 6 years, another entire mortal life had passed. It was clear that the world outside had changed a lot. The water of the Black Dragon Lake was no longer clear. It always had an indelible smell of rust and fire. I slowly surfaced to breathe, but I realized that the former lush vegetation was gone. What replaced it was a vast scorched earth and ruined walls and weapons. There had been a war, and a big war. The camps were side by side on the beach, but I was not their target now. Instead, two armies faced each other. One side had a black flag and the other had a red one. The slaughter was extreme. It felt like the end of the world. I was lying on a large rock in the middle of the water. Watching everything, I just thought about those. Really, the creatures who have no memory in this world. 6 years ago, they fought for a few pieces of dry land. Now they are fighting for a few worthless pieces of land. In the future, I am sure they will fight for this water too. I was planning to just sink to the bottom to sleep again. Become a turtle hiding and deaf to what was happening around. But at that moment a staggering form entered my vision, and he also entered this place full of death. He was a young man, only about 15 or 18 years old. He was wearing a tattered suit of armor that clearly did not fit him. He was holding a broken sword that was already broken. He was not here to fight, he was here to flee. His face was covered in mud and he had a wound on his leg. He hesitantly entered the only dried tree with a straw bag. He was like a frightened quail, trembling with fear. This boy's name was Goseng, and he was forced into the army. He did not want to be paid, and he knew nothing of the great principles for the people. All he wanted was to go home to harvest their wheat. He was tightly hugging a cloth bundle. When I examined it with my spirit, I discovered that it was not gold and silver inside, but a pair of cloth shoes that had not yet been sewn in half a piece of moldy bread. And at that very moment, his pursuers arrived, 3 Russian soldiers riding tall horses, their faces fierce as they waved their whips. They were galloping along the shore, watching. Come out. We saw you. Hey fugitive, if you don't come out, we will catch you and feed you to the dogs. Goseng was so scared that he could barely breathe and covered his mouth tightly. Tears were forming in his eyes, but he couldn't stop them. He buried his head deep between his thighs, and his appearance, it was like me from the old days. At that moment, my old heart that had been silent for 60 years. Suddenly, my heart beat slowly. How could he become a fugitive? That's exactly what I looked like when I was young. Just to live, ready to give up all my dignity. Ready to be as small as a chick, just to escape this disaster. The 3 soldiers guarding him, getting closer and closer. Several times, his head was almost trampled by horse hooves. One of them quickly got off the horse and stopped in front of the dry grass. Without saying a word, he raised his spear, ready to plunge it in. That was just one stab of a spear. Goseng was definitely finished. I just sighed. Throughout my life, the path I chose was to be elusive to survive. My mother was the one I bowed down to, and the one I hated the most of all were the ones who were good. But maybe because I had just woken up and my mind was still a bit floating. Or maybe because of how perfectly this kid hit his head. He really got my true style. I couldn't stop myself. I didn't make a big noise, unlike when I saved Zio back then. I was already an expert at the 5th level immovable mountain. What was important to me now was to move calmly like a soundless fog. I slowly opened my mouth and faced the water. And I took a deep breath. That one breath mixed with the morning steam from the Black Dragon Lake suddenly turned into a very thick fog that could not be extinguished. The fog appeared so suddenly. In the blink of an eye, it swallowed the vast area around it. The 3 guard soldiers were immediately blinded. The horses were startled, neighing and running away. Somewhere, another horse lost its balance and slipped into the deep water. The soldiers screamed in fear. They thought they were being led astray by an evil spirit, so while cursing, they quickly turned their horses and fled. In the thick fog, Gochung raised his head in confusion. He couldn't see me, but I could see him clearly. He collapsed to the ground, his breathing labored. Then, he seemed to suddenly remember something. From his chest, a pair of unfinished cloth shoes. Held them to his face and stroked them before moaning silently. "Mother, I don't want to fight anymore. I want to go home. I'm staying in the water." Silently watching everything. This is how the world is, people. It's not always full of heroic stories that are worthy of praise. More often, it's about soldiers fleeing because they just want to go home to get some rice. About mothers whose only Mangid has shoes made their children are the countless creatures like me who just want to crouch and hide. Ordinary creatures who want to live in peace and tranquility. The thick fog lasted for 3 days, and during those 3 days, because the 2 armies could not see their direction, their fighting miraculously stopped. Goseng took advantage of the fog and found a way out of the Black Dragon Pool. He even fled in the direction of his hometown. I did not take him, and I did not give him any gold or wealth. In this turbulent time, allowing him to escape intact and without gallows, that can be considered the greatest blessing. The war eventually ended, the rivers were filled with corpses. But this place of mine, because of that magical fog, was rumored to be cursed, so no one dared to come near. I was happy with the silence and continued my training. Every now and then, I remembered that boy named Gosheng. I thought, maybe he has returned home. Maybe he returned to the small village in the mountains, got married, had many children, and sat on the grinding stone at the entrance of the village to brag to his grandchildren. He would say that in the old days, at the Black Dragon Pool, he experienced a mysterious fog. It was said that it was the very sky that guided Grandpa to return home. So many years had passed, so long that I almost forgot the time. One day a strange group came to the side of the Black Dragon Pool. They were not an army, not fishermen either, but a group of scholars wearing long robes. They surrounded an old man sitting in a wheelchair. That old man was very old, almost toothless and full of freckles. His face. He pushed himself to the side of the lake, and tremblingly ordered the young people to arrange an altar. The offerings are not pig or sheep heads. "Grandpa, why did we come here just to offer sacrifices?" one of his great-grandchildren asked in surprise. The old man stared at the peaceful water with his blurry eyes, and smiled, because in this lake lived a great fairy who always bowed down. If it weren't for his compassion during those times, Grandpa would have long since become just bones in the wilderness. How would you still exist, you naughty people? I couldn't help but feel miserable under the water. The Great Retreater, what kind of nickname is that? It sounds ugly, but as I looked at his pair of cloth shoes, the annoyance I felt upon waking up inexplicably disappeared. The old man didn't stay long and left immediately. They say he is the oldest person known to live in the entire area. He is also the most cowardly and trouble-free old man. Landowner. In his entire life, he never fought with anyone. He avoided trouble when there was a problem. He defeated all his enemies throughout his life. I used my imagination to watch him leave. As he looked back, bent over in his wheelchair, I smiled slightly. This child truly inherited my way. To stay alive, that is not shameful. To die peacefully in old age in your own bed, surrounded by your children and grandchildren, that is the true victory. In life, I yawned as if sleepiness had not visited me again. This time, I intended to sleep soundly and for a long time. Maybe when I wake up next time, the world will have become a little wiser. Not so chaotic anymore, or maybe there will be no people in this world and only us old turtles are left, hanging on the rocks, basking in the sun and competing to see who will last longer. A wave is drawn on the surface of the water. but immediately returns to peace as if nothing had happened. Only the large rock covered in moss remained quietly submerged in the water, like a 1,000-year-old turtle waiting for the next person who does not want to die to solve it.